Hey everyone, welcome to the Art of Voice Acting panel at Virtuous Con. My name is NEYSHA Campbell. I'll be your moderator for this panel, and I'm thrilled to dive into the discussion with these amazing folks here with me today. I'll kick it off with introductions. As I said, my name is NEYSHA Campbell. I'm an entertainment writer and podcaster for Bookwivo, a geek community, where I also co-host the anime podcast, Did You Have To, and the entertainment podcast, So Here's What Happened. Now I'll have our panelists introduce themselves going clockwise from my screen. So Gabe, if you wouldn't mind kicking it off and introducing yourself.
Sure. My name's Gabe Kunda from Dallas, Texas. I'm a voice actor. Guess I should introduce kind of the stuff that I've done. My Hero Academia, Dragon Ball, some video games here and there, promos, commercial stuff. But yeah, that's me. It's my name.
Awesome. Thank you. And then ANAIRIS.
Oh, Call of Duty. I forgot. Zeno's like Call of
Duty. Don't forget.
Call of Duty. Yeah, that's the new one. Yeah.
My name's ANAIRIS QUIñONES. I'm a voice actress like everyone else here. You can hear me in My Hero Academia, ReZero, Rainbow High, a whole bunch of other anime that I'm blanking out on the spot because that happens. Recently Record of Ragnarok, which is out on Netflix. Oh, and Pokemon. I am Nessa in Pokemon as well. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
And then Zeno.
Hello, my name is ZENO Robinson. I'm an actor and voice actor, just like everyone else here. You can hear my voice as Remy Remington in Big City Greens, most recently The Golden Guard and Owl House Season 2. My Hero Academia, Go in Pokemon Journeys, Ogun Montgomery in Fire Force, and Cyborg in Young Justice. Thank you. Yes, it's an important one. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And then last but not least, Mr. Lamar.
Hey there. My name is PHIL LAMARR. I'm actor, voice actor, and gosh, I don't. Where do I do the old stuff or the new stuff? Was the voice of Static on Static Shock, Samurai Jack, Green Lantern on the Justice League, and currently working on the new Masters of the Universe that drops next month. And Craig of the Creek, and just some other stuff that they won't let me talk about yet.
It'd be like that.
Of course.
Well, thank you all. So let's go ahead and dive in with the first question. What or who motivated you to pursue a career in voice acting? And then you guys feel free to, whoever wants to speak first, go right ahead.
Well, I'll start since I'm old. And when I started out, I was not pursuing a career in voice acting because that wasn't a thing. Like, I always likened it to the fact that, like, before Bill Gates, being a tech billionaire wasn't a job description. And when I started out as an actor, voice actor wasn't a job description. It was that stuff Mel Blanc does. You know, but then cable came along, Nickelodeon, cartoons 24/7, and it actually became a job that you could make a living at. But honestly, that did not happen until the 90s. Wow. And so for me, I was pursuing acting, which meant face, and if I got a voice job, cool, I'll take whatever they're gonna pay me for.
Right.
But then as things were going along, I did a sketch show called Mad TV, and we had animated sections, interstitials, and they, of course, had the cast voice the cartoons they were making because they were already paying us, and they didn't want to pay nobody extra. And I found that I liked that work. And so after I left Mad TV, I began to actively pursue it. And I got lucky enough to hook up with a young, energetic agent who was starting out their voiceover department at the same time I was starting as a voice actor. And then, all of a sudden, cameras forgot me and microphones loved me. And here we are 20 years later.
Wow.
Cool.
Anybody want to get the baton?
Very cool.
I guess I'll go next. So I got started kind of funnily enough because of you, Phil. Static was the first ever cartoon that I ever saw myself as a hero. I was always a big fan of, anime and JRPGs and cartoons. And I watched them a lot growing up and I imitated them a lot growing up, but it never really felt like something that I could do until Static, the cartoon. And that's when I started to not only like be aware of like, oh wow, like I could do this, but be aware of like my place as my racial identity and my place in acting, because I've always wanted to act. I started acting in middle school. I watched a play, and that's when I was like, oh man, I want to do what everybody else is doing. So I took an acting program, which introduced me to my agents, and then I got an audition for Benton Alien Force, and the rest was history. But it started. The seed was planted when I realized that Static was my favorite cartoon, and so yeah, that's kind of how I got started in voice acting.
I can go. Yeah, oh, that bug's clean. For me, I've always been a fan of characters, and I remember I used to take a bunch of my toys, probably till I was I'm embarrassed to say this, 13 still, 14, whatever. I take my toys and make different character voices for each of them, and it was just I would do that all the time and just go into this world of imagination and stuff. So it was always there. And then I think I was about maybe 16 or 17. I came across this video called $1 Million Voices. It's with Don LaFontaine, Cedric Fox, Ben Patrick Johnson, all these movie trailer announcers. And I came across that video and it completely changed my life. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to voice movie trailers. And then I got in the world of it and started to kind of say, oh my gosh, character voices and this and that and the third. And that's what sparked it for me. I was like, one day I'm going to be the announcer guy that says rated PG-13 at the end of the movie stuff. And that's all I chase after, And then PHIL LAMARR, he was another person who inspired me and other people as well. I watched and I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. And then I graduated in senior year of college. I got signed and I've been doing it full time ever since. Crazy.
Well, Gabe, did you ever have people come up to you and just listen to your voice and go, hey?
That's cool.
Yes, I actually have.
Yeah.
It's funny too because I got a call from Scott Rummel, who was the kind of the Mount Rushmore in terms of that, and he was he told me something that just kind of stuck with me. He's like, "Man, you are a shooting star, and it comes once in a while." And I was like, I don't want to hear anything from anybody. I'm running, I'm going for this thing. And so yeah, it's crazy, now, especially people recognize it's I've heard you before. It's you can't even put words to it. It's amazing.
I was always interested in acting ever since I was a kid. I just never really pursued it because I was a very shy kid, very quiet kid. I wasn't very good at expressing myself, but I always was good at expressing myself in my own little bubble. And around the age of 10 or whatever, I was really starting to recognize voice acting was a thing because of anime. I think that was a thing that I really recognized. But I always liked, certain shows growing up. I loved Avatar growing up. I loved Teen Titans. There were so many things that resonated with me. And then thanks to the internet, the lovely internet, I came across online voice acting communities where I kind of pursued it as a hobby for many years. And then, I just kind of kept it as a hobby because I wasn't sure if I would succeed. Of course, I knew PHIL LAMARR, Summer, all of them, but I wasn't sure how would I get into it since anime seemed to be the starting point for a lot of peers, like me and Zeno and such. So then eventually I started getting more professional auditions while living in Florida. And it led to me booking my first anime role while living in Florida, which was Kimono Friends, very shortly after I booked my first prelay, which was RWBY. And, since I'm booking work from out of state, I was like, oh, I should probably consider moving, you know, since the work is basically calling to me. So I did move to Dallas for a bit, and things kind of blew up over quarantine, you know, and here I am.
Wait, blew up good or blew up bad?
Blew up good. I would say
good. And that's why I'm on this panel. Please hire me.
Please.
Things are not going well.
I am sinking.
ANAIRIS, are you still in Dallas?
No, at the moment I'm in Florida.
Oh, you went okay back.
Yeah.
Because you can, right?
Exactly. It's great. Remote work.
Awesome.
That's fascinating.
No, thank you all. It's very interesting to like hear like and think about it. Like, 10 years ago, not 10 years ago, but like Ms. Lamar, like you mentioned, like when you started it, it wasn't so much as a thing to pursue, and now it's just so interesting hearing all of you, like your paths and how you kind of like went through this journey and where you all are here now today, because I think all of you have like this impressive rap sheet of things you've done. Yeah. So that's amazing to hear how y'all got into it. Going on to the next question, what does the art of voice acting mean to you? And I guess like to follow like a clarifying question of that, you could think of it as like, how does the craft of or the art form of voice acting differ from other crafts?
Okay, like I warned you guys, you ain't gonna get a word in edgewise.
All right, that is all right.
Look,
take that off.
Well, it's interesting that you talk about the art of voice acting, because I don't know how many times people come up to me and go, "You do all the voices now. That's great. Do you miss doing real acting?"
I hate that.
And to me, you know, having, you know, spent years doing various, you know, methods of performance, it's all the same at the core. I think it's like a wheel. At the center is your job as an actor, as a performer. Take this script, idea, whatever, make it real for an audience. That's our job. Whether it's a commercial or a promo or something, they give you words, you got to connect them to the people, whether you're doing it on camera, on stage, on a microphone. Now, obviously, there's technical differences for all of those. You know, when you perform it on stage, you have to project and you can't turn around, you know. Same thing when you're on a microphone. Can't just go over here, you know. And it doesn't matter what you do with your face. So the technical differences are just what they are, based on the physical circumstance and the technicals. But the art of it is the art of performance. That's my take.
I very much agree with Phil Lamar. I try not to separate voice acting and acting. Because the way the society works, they start to delegitimize voice acting over legitimizing acting, and Hollywood's doing that too. It's very frustrating. So I try not to separate the two, because it's like Phil said, it's all the same at its core. It's telling a story believably, and you have to. It's the same muscles. You're charging your words with the same emotions you would if you're on camera, except on camera, you get to have everybody else there. You get to be on set. You get to actually be placed in your world. And voiceover, you have to make it. And it's a little harder that way. So yeah, I think what I think is the defining art of voice acting is pretty much like you are doing a lot of the work for everybody else when you're acting in the artistry of it. That's what makes it, I think, like a little challenging, but also distinct. It's just you in a booth, and maybe everybody else is there, but sometimes it's just you and the words, and you have to create the world without any help. And then, you know, the artists who are going to take the project and will make the world out of it. But yeah,
I agree. And it's like, you know, with, I guess, on screen, or what they call real acting, you know, you can do certain things with your mannerisms, or just kind of how you express yourself with your hands and stuff without even saying anything. People kind of know, or your facial expressions of people, how you feel. You know, with VO, I mean, you have to, if you're raising an eyebrow, we need to hear that in the read, right? So it's just kind of, it's I feel like, I don't want to say it's heightened or whatever, but I mean, we have a lot on us in terms of trying to make that come across in our reads and stuff. So you know, it's not just about having amazing pipes or like an incredible whatever. It really takes, you got to know how to play your instrument. You know, I had this amazing keyboard. That doesn't mean I know how to play it amazingly at all.
Right.
So it's the acting is the acting is the engine, I think, in any
Yeah, I always say that voice acting is a misnomer because the acting comes first.
That's right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So true.
Cute.
No, I mean everyone has covered it. I mean, with what Gabe said though, it's like, you know, it is an instrument, and I do feel like every form of acting is different in its own way, you know. And I feel like, you know, it's still acting, but you know, a voice actor may not be able to do on camera if they've only been doing voice acting, right, and vice versa. So
Right.
you know, you gotta learn the technical difficulties or the technicalities of each form. You can't just like swap to one or another.
Exactly. Yeah.
But there's still the same foundation of your acting, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
But no, yeah, ANAIRIS, you're absolutely right. That technical shift, and Gabe, what you said about being able to communicate a feeling or a vibe vocally.
Yes.
It's the same way that there are certain people who can communicate things like they have a feeling inside and they can show it on their face. Not everybody can do that. I mean, I remember on Justice League, we would have a lot of guest actors who were amazing on-camera actors. And you get them in this room, and I'm like, oh, man, I think this dude got hit in the head with something.
What happened?
Right. Well, because the process is different. You don't have, you know, 4 days of rehearsal and, you know, physicalizing and a costume to help you make that feeling communicate. It's just somebody handed you some pages and now you got to read.
Cold reading, yeah.
Right? But it can't be cold. You got to cold read hot.
Hot, right? So true. So true.
Wow.
Cold
That's-
read hot.
I love hearing that perspective. Oh, I'm sorry, Zeno, I cut you off.
Oh no, I was just clearing my throat. He said cold read hot, and I thought that was brilliant.
Just want to share some of the remarks from the audience just as a part of this question. So Carolyn Hines says, I don't understand how people don't see voice acting as art. In real acting, they're performing a character the same as live action. So some of you guys kind of touched on that. And then also Fitted Mistress said, I remember doing radio work before, and a quote that my mentor said and stuck with me was, radio is the theater of the mind. I think that really applies to the art of voice acting. So these are just some comments from our audience. So thank you guys for chiming in with that and contributing to that question. So kind of like some of you touched on the process and how the art of voice acting differs. And like, Ms. Lamar, I love how you kind of like went into that, like how the process of it. So I was curious of how do you all go about creating the voices for your characters, or like, what's your process for that? I mean, you don't have to give everyone your trade secrets, but you know, like, is there a preference you have, or like, is there just a process that you have for preparing yourselves as voice actors when you have a character that's given to you to design their voice?
I mostly, when I approach a character, if there's like no like picture attached that kind of gives me a idea of what they look like and, you know, where I can pick out from their image, I try to first approach it from my perspective. Is what about this character speaks to me? What about this character can I connect with on a personal level? How is this character like me? Where is our connection? And from there, I just try to be as truthful as possible with whatever character it is. Because at the end of the day, whether they're a, you know, tiny rabbit living in Rabbit Town, or they're, you know, a superhero or a regular person, they're a person with emotions and wants and needs and desires and hopes and dreams. And I just try to stay as truthful as I can to those things, no matter the kind of style of whatever it is I'm auditioning for. And, you know, age like plays in a factor, like, oh, maybe I'll approach it from this direction, maybe I'll approach it from that direction, or, you know, if they're like their personality, if they're like a nerd, or if they're like neurotic, you know, how will that affect the energy of the read? So I kind of like playing around and figuring out where they fit, where they are energetically, and try to be as honest to that. I kind of, you know, layering things on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can. Yeah, for me, I really rely, like Zeno. I think also, descriptions that come in, I allow that to be kind of what kind of tells me, okay, this is how I'm going to approach it. Is he a big guy? Is he small? Does he have long teeth? What does he look? And that helps me kind of in my mind. Okay, this is what he may sound like. Now, a lot of times, what I'm seeing a lot more in these sides, they're wanting a lot more grounded characters and more like, even if he has large teeth all the way to the bottom of his, whatever, they still want him to sound like we're talking to each other, like, so it's very interesting in that. But I allow the sides to kind of help me get in that world, and then from there, grow them out. And so once you get into the job, once you grab it, the director could say, okay, let's pull you this way, let's kind of tug here, let's stretch this out here, and then you've collaboratively have created a character, which is what it is, right? Teamwork.
Collaboration.
Yeah, if we're talking about auditions, I'm the type of person where I kind of ignore the description. Like, I will look at what the character looks like if there's any art, and then I'll just kind of go through, the actual scene and discover the character that way. I like to find the truth of the character within the sides. And then, if there's something like I find while going through the sides, I'm like, oh, okay, how can I press more on this? Like, how can I dig deeper? I'm very much experimental in that way. But I guess if we're talking about like in session, it's like Gabe said, it can be collaborative. I come in with like my interpretation, and the director, and maybe, the clients themselves will kind of move us like exactly where we need to go. So that's one of my favorite things about voice acting, that it can be collaborative.
Anybody just like be like, I'm just gonna do something totally not what this is. And see how they feel.
It's normally like it's only on the, if sometimes we'll say 2 takes or something. If they say 2 takes or 3 takes, whatever, it's normally on that last take. While it's like, I'm about to give y'all something completely different,
completely what I want to do. Like,
what I want to do, whatever.
Crazy.
Because at the end, they know what they want. But at the same time,
but do they?
When they hear it, they're like, we did not think of this, and that's how you sometimes get an upper hand there.
Yeah. No, yeah, you guys spoke to all of it. It is start with what they give you, and because that's the thing, Lanisha, is it varies. Sometimes you get an entire script and a drawing, and it's like, oh, okay, so let me figure out how I would perform this character in this role in this story. Right. Some other times you get no drawing, you just get 4 lines with nobody else's lines around them,
right.
And then 3 paragraphs of description, and 9 celebrities that they want to feel like.
Yes.
Gwyneth Paltrow, Samuel L. Jackson-y.
And I go get those guys.
I found actually part of over the years you realize is you learn what to ignore.
That's good.
Yeah.
And distill it. Get down to like you were saying, it's like, okay, let me get into this and find what I can latch onto. And Zeno, like you said, what is it that about me? Because I've told this to students. If you're reading that script or these lines or this description of this character, and there's something that sparks for you, that excites you, when you perform that, that's going to excite the people listening to it. Because the truth of the matter is, we ain't going to get everything we audition for.
No,
because there's too many other elements, and you can't read somebody's mind. All you can do is like, okay, this is the most interesting take I have on this. And Gabe, like you were saying about character descriptions and teeth, that's the sort of thing. They may have something in the description or in the character design that they're not actually referencing in the script.
Right.
Like, no, this is something that's significant to this character. Let me see how I can work that in. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, when we heard your audition, it just came to life.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good. Just
Yeah.
love it.
No. Awesome.
With the whole bringing yourself to copy, though, real quick, like that's something I actually learned recently. Because I feel like I was very used to in my acting, like kind of being the character and not really bringing myself into it. And now I'm sort of learning, like recently, like, oh, okay, you know, how the best way to make this unique and make this stand out is bringing myself into this,
Right.
Because you're the only you have.
Only you.
Absolutely. Yes.
And that right there's a superpower right there alone. I mean, it's just kind of like no one else can do what you do. And so that's important to incorporate that. Yeah.
And once you have the ability to translate yourself into multiple different kinds of characters, it's like, okay, if I was an alien in the 30th century, what would I be like? You know, that ain't easy.
No.
Oh, wow.
But,
no,
yeah.
I appreciate all of your answers on that. Sorry, did I cut someone off? I just want to make sure I got everybody. Oh,
Good.
Okay. I kind of want to skip down to one of these other questions because someone's comment, they brought it up and I figured I should ask because ANAIRIS, I love what you just said about putting yourself into the character. So Maya Cleaver said, as Black voice actors, how has the voiceover industry treated you over the years? Has it gotten better or worse? So that's their question. But one of my questions, and then you guys can choose how you want to answer them. My question to follow up with that is like, do any of you feel more empowered, or have you felt empowered when the role you're taking on is a Black character or a character of color to improve their representation because you're able to put some of yourself into them?
Well, it's interesting because when I started out, like I was saying before, diversity and representation were not terms that were being used in entertainment. You know, I mean, there was at least, by the time I started, a consciousness that, entertainment should in some ways reflect our world, but it was not a priority. And nobody was getting paid to do that.
Right.
And there were hurdles. I mean, when we did Static Shock, I mean, that series was chosen because it was a teenage superhero. The fact that he was African American was not the selling point to the people who bought it, but it was to us. It's what made it special. But it also meant that there were certain hurdles. Because back then, Saturday morning cartoons were not made as art, or really even as entertainment. They were made to sell toys.
Advertising, yeah.
Right.
And I think I've told you this story before, but Static Shock, when they, as normal, when they get a TV series, they're going to go to the toy company and say, okay, what are we going to sell with this? And they said, we don't see a market for this character. And so after 4 seasons of winning our time slot every Saturday morning, we got canceled because wasn't nobody making no merch money on us. So that's like one of those cycles where,
Right.
and if you want to talk about how things have changed, that has definitely gotten better. There are now people who are conscious and understand the value of diversity. I mean, some of them understand it on a more, sincere level than others.
Yes.
I don't want to get yelled at by them.
Right.
But then there are other people who just recognize it on the level of diversity equals excellence. The more perspectives, the more voices you have, the greater chance you have of making something fantastic. When I did Justice League, I asked Bruce Timm, because I was a comic book guy, and he cast John Stewart as the Green Lantern of Earth, which was not the case in the comic books at the time. And I said, why did you pick him instead of Hal Jordan? He's like, we didn't want to do a show where 7 white people save the Earth every week. We thought that was boring. And it was interesting because, like, that wasn't political. That was like, I want to make the best work I can, the most interesting, you know? So, and I think there are more people who share that mindset now than there were then. And obviously with, you know, the internet and the broadening of the gatekeepers, you know, because before it's like, okay, there's 3 channels. You got to get the people on the top floor of those 3 networks to, you know, say yes to this idea.
Yeah.
Now there are so many more avenues for so many more voices. So there's much greater representation, you know, and like I said, the more voices, the greater likelihood of something cool, interesting, and powerful.
That's good. Yeah, I especially in the anime world, I think I started doing some stuff back in like 2016 is when I kind of first got my first role, and really, I mean, you know, I want to always put you on the spot, Phil, just because it's like you're the, like Mount Rushmore. I mean, it's like in terms of inspiration on where could I find to pull from for these characters, even in anime or just stuff like this, it was like you, it was Summers, like there was other people, but there wasn't a lot. I mean, now it's like you got Zeno, you got NEYSHA, you got few other people too. I don't want to miss their names, but like it's getting better, and that's the thing that I'm loving. Even in the sides that we're getting, I'm just kind of like, bro, they're asking for us every day. I love it here, and you know, and sometimes, you know, sometimes I think the challenge also is to say, you know, we could do other things as well. You don't have to keep us in this box. Like we're dynamic. We're not just one thing. And so that's what, you know, we're pushing. But it has, even from when I started, which was crazy long ago, but you know, I have seen some improvement in just stuff I'm receiving and things I'm trying to work on. Yeah.
Wait, can I ask you guys, because I'm not an anime person, are as voice actors of color in anime, are you doing, generally speaking, characters of color? Or are you just in the same pool of voices as everybody else?
It started that way. Like when I started doing anime in LA, I was only getting read for characters of color in anime, which meant that I was reading on 1 of 15 anime a season, you know, or I was getting cast in 1 of 15 anime a season, which isn't super sustainable, but also isn't, on a grand scale, isn't very significant in comparison to my peers who would get in, you know, who would get on rosters later than me and would get more, it would get further traction than I would because they would get to audition for everybody. But now, like, after, you know, I did kind of start breaking that cycle with Hawks. And since then, I've been able to read and play characters that aren't just Black characters in many different anime. And for me, it was always about kind of showing that was something that can be done. And you know, sorry, like Gabe said, sorry to put you on the spot, but like you were you know, Ramza in Final Fantasy Tactics, and like Phil, and like that's like a prime example of how something like that can be done. And so like that was kind of what I set out to do, especially as an anime enthusiast, is like, I love this medium. I should be able to play in it as well, since everybody else who loves it can. And you know, going back to the other part of the question, like, is it empowering? It's empowering when I get to play Black guy in anime, because there's not a lot, right? Like Ogun is like a very empowering character, because not only is a Black guy in anime, he's a Black guy in anime that actually does something. So you know, like it was super empowering. Like it was very it's like probably one of my proudest like anime acting moments, because of just how significant he wasn't a stereotype. He wasn't drawn offensively. He, like, you know, I didn't have to put on like a, you know, I got to just be a guy like who happened to be Black in this crazy world, and like had a great Sailor Moon transformation sequence in a fight scene, and it was I'm very proud of just what that stood for. So yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Awesome.
Yep.
Oh, sorry, Phil, were you going to say something?
No, just that because the anime world is completely foreign to me, but it's fascinating that the same dynamics are in play, because in traditional animation, you know, back in the 90s, before, like I said, anybody was seeking out diversity and representation, if you were a performer of color, generally speaking, the only way you got in the door was if there was a character of color specifically, you know. And I found this true of my friends who, you know, were Latino voice actors, Asian voice actors. And because of Anisha, there's this weird thing in voiceover where they get 3 voices for your paycheck. So they need that. If you can't do 3 different voices, that first job you get in the door, then you're probably not coming back in.
Oh, shoot.
Because you cost them more money. And of course, like we're saying, like, you know, Zeno was saying, like, you know, statistically, the majority of those other characters were not of color. So, you know, you needed to be able to switch your code up to get paid.
Truly. That's right.
Key.
But then once you can, it's like, all right, we've got a security guard here for too long. Phil, can you just do it? It's like, sure, I'm going to be a security guard. I'm like, ooh. And it sticks in their head, and then you get on that other list. Not just the colored list.
The black list.
Or more importantly, the list of people who get paid every week. But and now, as things have, you know, matured societally speaking, you know, it's funny because I've got this right here. This is the Dwayne Award for Diversity in Comics. It's an award named after my friend Dwayne McDuffie, who was a writer for one of the creators of Milestone Comics, the first black comic book company. He's the creator of Static Shock, Hardware Icon, and he wrote and produced Static Shock the cartoon and Justice League before he passed away too young. But the motto for this award is from invisible to inevitable. And I think that is the path that many of us as artists of color are on. You know?
Funny enough about Dwayne, he created, he was a story editor for Ben 10 Alien Force, which was my first job, being Alan as in Ben 10. So Alan was his creation. So that's like super cool.
That's crazy.
Oh, that's right. You got to work with him. I forgot about that.
Yep. I got to show him my wallpaper. I was like, Stack's my favorite card. I'm like, look, it's my wallpaper.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. This has been a great conversation. I know we only have a few minutes left, so I did want to share a few more comments. Maya Cleaver said, I'm a Black trans woman, and I really appreciate this panel because I want to be able to express myself and tell my story through this medium, and I appreciate all of you for helping. So thank you, Maya, for sharing that. And then I guess because we only do have a few more minutes and we can't get through everyone's questions, but thank you to the audience for like sharing your comments, your questions. I do have one last question because someone did bring it up just because of what 2020 was in the pandemic. If you guys could say what was the most for you, like one of the most challenging things about, you know, having like the pandemic and like the work that you do. Like if you had a barrier, or like if you went from working in a booth with people, or you had to transition to working from home, if there was something challenging about that.
I'll say because I do some work in commercial and the promo stuff, you kind of already have to have your own booth just because it's just like they need you in 5 minutes, ABC or Fox needs you in 2, and it's just like, what? There's no way you're driving around town for a studio. But
Right.
I think that on the anime side of things, we had to be our own engineer, our own like the actor, I mean, it was a change, because I'm over here looking at my screen and making sure my levels are right and making sure I'm matching up to did that time right? Especially at the beginning of it all, everybody was still trying to figure it out. Right. And that was interesting, you know, having to do all that at once. It really made me have an appreciation for the engineers and the folks who like help us and just allow us to just do our job, which is like acting and bringing the character to life. Because to have to toggle all of those things at once, it was just kind of like, bruh, I may have to sit this out for a year and wait for it to start kicking back up. But right. Man.
Yeah. I know nothing messed me up more than having to slate line numbers and take numbers.
Oh my God.
Oh man.
Wow.
The most challenging thing for me, because it was kind of getting used to acting at home, like working in the same space that I sleep. I realized that that's something that I just do not like doing. You know, like I like having my creative space and my leisure space, and those things combined last year, and it was it's not fun. It was kind of interesting though, the dynamic. I could wake up at 8:50 for a session at 9 a.m. and you know, roll out of bed, get in my booth, and make my tea. But like that was the most challenging thing for me, and like having to act when, you know, the world was on fire was interesting too. Like, oh, cops are killing black people, can you do this anime please? So it's like, no. I'm not really feeling it today, I don't think. You know.
Yeah, everything Gabe and Zeno said, and for me, I feel like you know, my career, you know, really gained traction with the pandemic. And I think a bit of a challenge for me is just being able to, you know, introduce myself to all these clients and casting directors and all of that remotely, when, you know, I've never gotten that in-person connection, because that's, you know, totally different, like having to have those connections online. So it's been interesting, you know, networking online for sure.
It's you know, it's crazy, because everything was, and I'm grateful.
Same.
But everything was kind of like, so a lot of stories about, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. But like the entertainment medium and just kind of like what we do specifically with animation and video games, that was just kind of like pouring.
2020. Yeah, that was the year I worked every day for a year. I had never had a year like that before. It was insane.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm grateful. I'm sure we're all grateful.
Yes.
Some sad things happened, but there was some sunshine in there, I think.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for sharing that bit for that last question. And I guess now is our time where we say goodbye. Thank you all for being a part of this awesome panel and this awesome discussion. It's been just beautiful talking with each of you and getting to know more about your journey, your work, your craft, and everything that you put into the work that you do. And I hope that a lot of people were able to enjoy this and get something out of it, because I know I did. And I do really appreciate the art of voice acting that you guys and what you do, because it matters to fans like us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to the artists, because, I mean, Gabe, you brought this up. Animation, voicing, I mean, animation in general and voice acting in particular is a collaborative art form. I always say that as a voice actor, I'm 1/3 at most of that character.
Right.
Yep. That's true.
So I hope everyone else at Virtuous Con will have a great time, enjoy and see other panels, enjoy the other talks that are going on for today and tomorrow. But yeah, thank you guys. I don't know if you want to just like wave off and say goodbye to our audience. It's weird not seeing anyone else.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
But goodbye.
But thank you guys. Bye. Thank you guys for coming so much.
So y'all better be barbecuing.
that
Yeah.
bar-
Don't do any work today. Get your coin. Point at the nearest person that's not black and ask for $1 at the grocery store. Just have your hand up.
Reparations.
Knock on your neighbor's door. We're gonna get them reparations however we can.
Mhm.